The offer letter arrives on a Tuesday. The number is $34,000 a year. You read it twice. You sign it the same afternoon. You were told the window closes Friday. And $34,000 felt like more money than you had ever seen. Organized into a single annual figure. With your name above it. You do not negotiate. The thought occurs to you and you dismiss it. Because you are not sure you are allowed to. And because you don't want to seem difficult. And because the job is already more than you had last month. You start Monday. This is where it begins. Not with a salary. With a decision you didn't fully make. Your manager knows 3 things about you. Your name. Your start date. And whether you show up on time. That is the full extent of the information. That governs how you are treated in the first 90 days. You are not a person to the organization yet. You are a headcount. A filled slot on a resource planning document. That someone in HR updates once a quarter. The work you do is real. The contribution is real. But the way the company values that contribution has almost nothing to do with the quality of the work. And almost everything to do with the category you've been placed in. Entry level. The category determines your pay band. The pay band determines your ceiling. The ceiling exists before you walk through the door. Established by a compensation team that set the range months ago. Based on market data from surveys that lagged actual market conditions by 18 months. You are paid within a band. The band is not explained to you. You don't know where you sit inside it. You don't know how wide it is. You don't know that the person hired 3 months before you is making $4,200 more for the same role. Because they negotiated and you didn't. And the company does not volunteer this information. Because it is not required to. And because knowing would cost them money. The performance review arrives at month 12. Your manager gives you a 3 out of 5. Meets expectations. This is not a criticism. A 3 is what most people receive. Because a 3 is what the distribution is designed to produce. The budget for raises is fixed. If everyone rated highly, the math breaks. So the system produces a curve. You are inside the curve. Your raise is 2.8%. On $34,000, that is $952 annually. Before taxes. It arrives in your paycheck as an additional $36 every 2 weeks. And you don't notice it until someone asks. You are not being exploited at this level. You are being processed. The machine is not hostile. It is efficient. And efficiency at scale requires that individual circumstances not slow it down. 3 years pass. You are still here. Some people left after year 1. Some were pushed out in a restructuring. That was framed as a strategic realignment. You stayed. You learned the system. You learned which meetings actually mattered. And which ones existed to produce the appearance of alignment. You learned your manager's priorities. And you oriented your visible work around them. Your salary is now $41,000. The raises were small but they compounded. You also asked for one. Which is something you did not do in year 1. The ask was uncomfortable. You prepared for it for 2 weeks. You researched comparable salaries. And printed nothing. Because bringing a printout felt aggressive. And you are still not sure what aggressive means. In a place where aggression is never named. Only punished. The company sees you differently now. Not dramatically. You are not a priority conversation in any boardroom. But the algorithm of institutional memory has tagged you as reliable. Reliable is valuable because reliable is rare. And because training a replacement costs between 50 and 200% of annual salary. And nobody wants to run that number up to finance. You are offered a promotion. The title changes. The responsibility expands. The pay increase is 9%. which is significant by the standards of this company, and which still leaves you below the market rate for the new role, because the promotion was internally calibrated against your existing salary, rather than benchmarked externally. You accept it because 9% is real, and because the title opens doors, and because you have learned that leverage inside a company is built in layers. And this is one layer. What you have not been told is that the person hired externally for a parallel role 6 months later will start at $58,000. You are making $44,700. The gap is not malicious. It is structural. External hires are priced by the market. Internal promotions are priced by what you were already making, plus a percentage that feels generous in the context of your history, but looks different in the context of the industry. You are an asset now. A retained asset. Retained assets are managed, not competed for. You have a skill now. Not a general skill. A specific one. You are the person who understands the integration between two legacy systems that were never properly documented, and that nobody else has touched in 4 years. Or you are the person who manages the relationship with a client, generating $2.3 million annually, and who has made clear, without saying it directly, that they are buying access to you specifically. Or you are the person who has produced results in a role that was understaffed and undefined, and that you quietly built into something the organization now depends on. The company's relationship with you changes at this point. Not because of goodwill. Because of risk. Losing you is now a calculable problem. It has a number attached to it. Someone, somewhere in the management chain, has done informal math on what your departure would cost. The number is uncomfortable. So the treatment shifts. The shift is subtle at first. Your manager begins checking in more. Not to monitor but to retain. The check-ins are warm and vague. How are you doing? What do you need? Is there anything we can be doing better? These are not questions designed to gather information. They are questions designed to make you feel seen enough to stay. A counteroffer appears. When you mention, carefully and with strategic ambiguity, that you have been approached by another company. You were approached. The other offer was real. The counter is also real. It is $67,000. Your current salary was $52,000. The jump is significant. And the fact that it required an external offer to produce it tells you something precise about how your value was being held before the threat of departure made that holding untenable. You take the counter or you take the outside offer. Either way, the dynamic has shifted. You have learned that your value to an organization is not revealed by its treatment of you in ordinary conditions. It is revealed by what it offers when the alternative is losing you. The number they produce under pressure is the number they always knew you were worth. They were simply waiting to see if you'd figure it out first. You have people now. Not many. 4, maybe 6. But the transition from individual contributor to manager is one of the most significant reframings the corporate structure performs on a person. And it happens so quickly and with so little ceremony that most people don't feel the shift until they are already on the other side of it. You are no longer valued for what you produce. You are valued for what your team produces. This sounds like a small change. It is not. Your entire performance surface has changed. The criteria for your evaluation are now diffuse, collective, and partially outside your control. If your team performs, you are effective. If your team underperforms, the first question is always what you did or did not do to prevent it. Your compensation reflects this shift. You are making $78,000. The band for your level has a ceiling of $105,000. And you have no idea. Because no one tells you. And you haven't asked in a way that produced a direct answer. The range matters. Because it tells you how much runway exists before the structural ceiling arrives. And you are forced to decide whether to climb the hierarchy further or plateau inside it. The company's investment in you increases at this level. Not through salary alone. Through information. You are now in rooms where strategy is discussed. You know things that entry-level employees don't know. Because you need to know them to execute. You are being trusted with context. Context is a form of compensation that doesn't appear on a pay stub. You are also being evaluated on a dimension that was invisible before. Managerial potential. Can you develop people? Can you retain them? Can you make decisions under ambiguity without constant escalation? These are not things the company assesses with precision. They are things it assesses through the impressions of the people above you. And the stories those people tell in rooms you are not in. Your career at this level is partly determined by conversations you will never hear. The title means something now. Not to you. To the external market. The title director on a resume is a filter that opens certain doors and closes none. It signals a threshold of organizational trust that recruiters and executive search firms use to sort candidates before reading another word. Your salary is $130,000. Your bonus target is 20%. Total compensation in a good year approaches $160,000. You are inside the top 10% of earners nationally. And the money has done what money does at this level. It has become invisible. The lifestyle expanded to meet it over 3 years. Without a single dramatic purchase. Just a slow accumulation of decisions that each seemed reasonable. And together produced a fixed cost structure that now requires $130,000 to maintain. The company's view of you at this level is strategic. You are not a resource. You are a capability. The distinction matters. Because resources are managed and capabilities are deployed. You are deployed into problems. Not the operational problems that your team handles. The structural ones. The ones without a clear owner. The ones that arrived in the organization through a merger. Or a market shift. Or a leadership change. And that requires someone who can navigate ambiguity without a playbook. You are also being watched in a different way. Not for performance exactly. For signal. The senior leadership is assessing whether your judgment scales. Whether the way you think about a $500,000 problem is consistent with how they would think about a $50 million one. This assessment is never formalized. It happens in meetings. In how you present. In what you choose to escalate and what you absorb. In whether, when something goes wrong, you explain or you solve. The company has now invested enough in your development that replacing you is genuinely expensive. Not just the salary. The institutional knowledge. The relationships. The trust. The invisible infrastructure that lives in your head and your network. And that does not transfer in an offboarding document. You are worth more than you are paid. This is almost certainly true at every level. But at this level the gap is large enough. And visible enough. That you begin to understand it clearly. Something fundamental changes at the VP level and above. The company stops evaluating you primarily on what you do. It begins evaluating you on who you are to the organization. Your identity becomes partially institutional. You are not just someone who works here. You are someone who represents here. Externally to clients, to the market, to potential partners. Internally to the people below you in the hierarchy. Who are looking at your behavior as a signal of what this place actually values. Your compensation structure changes. Base salary is now one component among several. Equity. Long-term incentive plans. Annual bonuses tied to company performance. Not just your own. The structure is designed to align your interests with the organization's interests. Which is a polite way of saying that the company is now paying you partly in future promises. in order to make your departure economically painful. The golden handcuffs are real, not metaphorical. You have unvested equity that will disappear if you leave before the schedule completes. The schedule is 4 years. You are 2 years in. Leaving now costs you $340,000. You know this. The company knows you know this. The structure was designed knowing you would know it. This is not cynical. It is how organizations retain the people they have decided are essential. The information you have access to is material. You are in the conversations where real decisions are made. Not the performative alignment sessions. The actual conversations. About whether to exit a market, acquire a competitor, restructure a division, or replace someone in a critical role. The company trusts you with this, because you have reached the level where your incentives are sufficiently aligned, that the risk of misuse is managed. You are not running the company, but you are close enough to the people running it, that the distance is no longer structural. It is personal. The CEO is not the most powerful person in most large organizations. They are the most visible one. Power and visibility are not the same thing. And at this level, you understand that distinction with a precision you could not have accessed from below. Your compensation is public if the company is public. The number appears in a proxy statement. And journalists write about it. And employees look it up. And the number is always larger than it looks from the outside. And always more complicated. Base salary is a fraction of total compensation. Equity grants, performance shares, deferred compensation, and benefits that don't appear in the summary make the true number 30 to 60% larger than what gets reported. But the more important shift at this level is not compensation. It is consequence. Every decision you make ripples into other people's lives. With a directness that didn't exist before. A restructuring decision affects 800 families. A capital allocation choice determines whether a product gets built or quietly shelved. A hiring decision at the executive level reshapes a team's culture for the next 5 years. You are now being evaluated by a board, not by a manager. A group of people who meet 6 times a year, and who read reports about you, and who have the authority to end your tenure with a vote. The accountability structure has inverted. You are answerable to people who are not inside the building. The company's relationship with you at this level is existential. You are not an employee. You are the face of a strategy. The market watches your statements. Investors model your decisions. Competitors study your moves. You have become, in some sense, a public entity, operating inside a private role. And if the strategy fails, you are the explanation. The offer letter arrives on a Tuesday. Someone signs it the same afternoon. They don't negotiate. The thought occurs to them and they dismiss it. They don't want to seem difficult. This is where it begins. Not with a salary. With a decision they didn't fully make. The difference between that person and the one running the organization 20 years later is not talent. Not entirely. It is the accumulation of decisions made with increasing precision about when to accept, when to push, when to leave, and when to stay. Every level of the corporate structure is a different institution operating inside the same building. The rules change. The currency changes. The way your value is held, hidden, revealed, and negotiated changes with each floor you climb. The people at the top are not smarter than the people at the bottom. They are more precisely aware of how the game is scored.